What would it be like if one morning after waking up, you found out you were stranded 50 million kilometers away on Mars? Your friends or colleagues had left you there alone. And at this moment, your air, water, and food, everything is very limited and will run out after a while. Exactly these events happened to someone in the 2015 movie, The Martian. At the start of the movie, we see a 6-member team from NASA has gone to Mars to collect soil samples. They were all supposed to stay on Mars for 31 days. But suddenly, they learn that a very big storm is approaching near their mission site. Because of this, they abort their project right there and decide to return to Earth immediately. By the time they all leave their base camp and reach the flying object, the MAV, the storm arrives there. There was a member of their team named Mark Watney. During the storm, an antenna flies and hits him, carrying him away. Then, their team captain and the other team members search extensively for him but cannot establish contact in any way. They weren't getting any signal from him. And because of the intense storm, his team members couldn't see anything. That's why, despite much effort, they couldn't find Watney. After searching for a long time and still not finding Watney there, the team members think he died there. And for that reason, they leave without Watney and return. But the next morning, when the storm subsides, it's seen that Watney is alive there. The previous night, during the storm, he was knocked unconscious because the antenna hit him. Then, a part of that antenna pierced his suit and went into his stomach. Because of that, now, after regaining consciousness, he was in severe pain. He then returns to his own camp from there. And then, to remove that piece of iron from his stomach, he performs a small operation on himself alone. After becoming a bit normal, he notices that he is completely stranded alone on Mars. And now, even if he wants to, he cannot contact NASA in any way, because all communication antennas were destroyed during the storm the previous night. Now, he calculates that he has a total of 68 days worth of food stored for 6 people. If he eats that food alone, it will last 400 days. He had a water reclaimer and an oxygenator, which solved his water and air problems there. At this moment, there was only one way for Watney to return to Earth. NASA's next mission, Ares 4, which is scheduled to happen 4 years from now. Meaning, to return to Earth from here, he would have to wait here for 4 years for NASA's next mission. But now, the problem is that the food Watney has left won't last 4 years. Surviving that long is impossible. After thinking for a few days, Watney finds a solution to this food problem. Since he was a botanist, he had a good idea about agriculture. He then builds a separate chamber on one side of their camp. And there, he starts cultivating potatoes by mixing Martian soil with their own poop, feces. Now, the problem was that farming required a lot of water there, and he didn't have that much extra water for farming. To solve this problem, Watney extracts hydrogen from the rocket fuel there. He mixes oxygen with it and sets it on fire. After several failed attempts initially, Watney succeeds in making water from it. Now, he had all the necessary things for potato farming there. A few days after starting this farming, Watney notices that a small potato plant has sprouted there, which makes him overjoyed. Meanwhile, on Earth, NASA had declared Watney dead and held his funeral here. But Watney was doing quite well there. He was farming potatoes. Several days after these events, NASA's Mars mission director, Vincent Kapoor, was examining several places on Mars via satellite with his employees. While looking at these, they find out that Watney is still alive there. After seeing this, they are initially utterly shocked. Then immediately, they start planning how to bring Watney back to Earth. NASA seniors decide that, since NASA's next Mars mission is still 4 years away, they will send him food via a small rocket to keep Watney alive there until the next mission. Now, it's seen that building that rocket for this task will take 3 months, and sending it to Mars will take another 9 months, meaning at least 1 year will be needed very conservatively. Meanwhile, it's seen that 48 days after Watney started potato farming, he had a good harvest there. But no matter what Watney did here, everything was meaningless as long as he couldn't communicate with NASA. A few days later, Watney finds a small satellite there called Pathfinder, which was sent there in 1997. Due to some technical problems, its communication with NASA had been severed. Pathfinder's job was to take pictures from Mars and send them to Earth. After a bit of effort, he completely fixes the Pathfinder machine. Meanwhile, NASA had been constantly monitoring Watney via satellite. After seeing it on the satellite, NASA realizes Watney is trying to communicate with them using Pathfinder. After seeing this, Vincent Kapoor goes to California. After arriving there, he meets everyone who worked on the Pathfinder mission in 1997. Here, they reactivate Pathfinder's old setup so they can see the message Watney sends from Mars. Since the Pathfinder machine was very old, they could only communicate using yes and no signals. Exchanging even these small messages between them was taking a lot of time. While communicating in this complicated way, NASA sends Watney a hacking code. Using this, he can hack into a computer. As a result, He can now talk to NASA via text and email. Meanwhile, NASA informs Watney's remaining team members that Watney is still alive, how he is doing, and his current situation. After learning this, every member of that team becomes very upset. They feel terrible about leaving Watney alone there. After this incident, everything went quite well for several days. But suddenly, one day, due to some technical malfunction, an explosion occurs in one part of Watney's camp. Although Watney barely survives, the farmed crops cannot be saved. Because of this explosion, his crops and the entire environment for those crops were destroyed. Therefore, farming there was now impossible. Watney repairs the remaining part of the camp for his living quarters. Calculations show that, before the explosion, the food he had left would have lasted him 868 days. But because his food was destroyed in the explosion, the remaining food would only last him 609 days. Because of this, NASA now has to work even faster. To get food to Watney, NASA instructs him to stretch the food he used to eat in one day over 3 days now. And to save time for the rocket meant to deliver food to Watney, they completely skip its testing period, meaning they don't test anything on the rocket before launching it. They made this decision so they could deliver the food on time. After quite some time, the rocket is ready. They load food into it and NASA launches it. But shortly after launch, an explosion occurs in the rocket due to a mechanical failure. It is completely destroyed. Along with this rocket, the last hope of saving Watney is also destroyed, because he would starve to death before NASA's next project could reach him. After this incident, Watney becomes deeply disappointed. He had almost lost hope of survival. But then, the entire NASA team gets one more chance to save Watney. After NASA's rocket exploded, China contacts them and informs them they have a rocket ready that is fully prepared for spaceflight. Because of China's help, NASA gets another opportunity to save Watney. Now, with China's help, while NASA is planning their next launch, a NASA director named Rich contacts them. Rich tells them he is an astrodynamicist and he has a plan. With his help, they could bring Watney back to Earth in just 561 days instead of 4 years. And the plan was, the spacecraft his team members are using to return to Earth is called Hermes. To reach Earth properly by reducing speed, Hermes still needed 1 month. But instead of slowing down to reach Earth, if Hermes increased its speed and used Earth's gravity to slingshot around one side and head back towards Mars, they could reach Watney very quickly. When Hermes approaches Earth, NASA will use the rocket provided by China to deliver food to them. And in this way, they will reach near Mars. But they won't land there because, if they land, they will waste a lot of Hermes fuel, making it impossible for them to return to Earth. So, after they go to Mars, Watney will come out into space from Mars orbit using an MAV. And then, they will pull Watney inside from Hermes. MAV is a small rocket that can only be used to escape Mars gravity and reach space. And this MAV had been sent to Mars beforehand for NASA's next project. After hearing this plan, NASA directors don't agree, because if this plan is activated, the lives of the 5 other team members inside Hermes would be put at risk. Also, each of their missions would be extended by another 561 days. Therefore, NASA decides not to inform his team members about this new plan. But one of NASA's directors informs Watney's team members about this new plan. After learning about this plan, Watney's team members don't hesitate for a moment. They immediately decide they will follow this new plan and bring Watney back from Mars. For this, without informing NASA, after approaching Earth, they change Hermes' direction and start taking it back towards Mars. Seeing Hermes' direction change, NASA realizes they are going back to save Watney. Therefore, after they approach Earth, NASA uses the rocket provided by China to deliver extra food to them. After receiving the food, they head back towards Mars to save Watney. Now, it's seen that 7 months have passed since this event, and, due to eating less, Watney has become physically very weak. Now, Watney leaves his camp and starts heading towards NASA's next mission site, where the MAV for him had been left. It takes Watney several days to reach the new place because it was 3,000 kilometers away. The vehicle Watney had could only go about 70 kilometers per day because, after 70 kilometers, its batteries needed to be charged. Every day, Watney would drive for 4 hours. Then, using solar panels, he would charge the vehicle's battery for 13 hours. Slowly, he reaches the location of NASA's next mission. After arriving there, a small problem arises. The MAV, which was supposed to take him out of Mars orbit, was too heavy. Therefore, all unnecessary items had to be removed from it, like extra chairs, controllers, windows, doors, and even the roof of that MAV had to be removed because the roof alone weighed 400 kilograms. Since the controller was removed to reduce weight, Watney cannot operate it himself now. One of his team members will control it remotely from inside Hermes. The day arrives when Watney's team reaches near him to bring him back, and Watney uses that MAV to leave Mars orbit and reach space. After Watney reaches space, it's seen that Hermes' speed was much higher than his. And now, if Hermes' speed isn't reduced, Watney will never be able to reach it. Therefore, Hermes' captain decides to blow off a part at the front of Hermes using a bomb. Because of the explosion, Hermes' speed would reduce significantly. They do just that. They blow off a small section at the front of Hermes using a bomb. As a result, Hermes' speed reduces a lot. And now, they spot Watney from afar. To catch Watney, the team captain uses a flying chair, a jetpack, to come out of Hermes and move towards Watney. But after a while, the rope attached to his chair runs out. But Watney was still quite far from him, and if they couldn't catch Watney now, he would be lost in space like that. So Watney makes a small hole in the wrist of his spacesuit. Using the force of the air escaping from it, he flies like Iron Man and reaches his captain. After reaching the captain, due to the air force escaping from his suit, he slips past the captain's hand. But he somehow manages to grab the rope attached to the chair. And after this, after many days and much effort, he finally returns to his team members. After receiving this news, not only NASA but the entire world becomes extremely happy. Now, it's seen that many days have passed since Watney returned to Earth, and now he gives survival training to new astronauts. He shares his experiences with everyone and teaches them how to survive on Mars in case of danger. And here, the movie ends. If you liked the video, you can subscribe to the channel.